Okay, welcome everybody. Tonight we're going to be talking about hiking with dogs. We're going to have a guest presenter, Whitney Allgood LaRuffa. He is a long distance hiker and Six Moon Design VP of Sales. And this presentation tonight is brought to you by the Idaho Trails Association and Friends of Scotchman Peak Wilderness. My name is Pam Bond. I'm on the board of the Idaho Trails Association. We're going to kick off with just a little bit information about the Idaho Trails Association. Idaho Trails Association was founded in 2010 to promote the continued enjoyment of Idaho's hiking trails. This is through stewardship, tradition, education, and preservation. We do this mostly by doing trail maintenance on non-motorized trails. We have many projects throughout the spring to fall trail maintenance season. We keep the tradition alive by teaching people how to use traditional trail maintenance tools, such as Pulaskis and crosscut saws. We put on educational seminars such as this and try to educate people on the trail about things like leave no trace principles. And then also through preservation, just spreading the word about preserving our public lands and respectfully caretaking them. So just so you have an idea about what we've done over the last 10 years, as you can see in 2010, we started with just one project, and since then have practically, tenfold increased the number of volunteer hours that we've seen and the number of projects. This year, I believe we had nearly 40 different projects going on. So how can you help? If you're interested in learning more about the Idaho Trails Association, obviously you can go out to our website, idahotrailsassociation.org. We highly recommend that you become a member of our organization. And really, this is, some sort of monetary giving, whatever is meaningful to you, be it $10 or $10,000, we'll take all of it. And this gets you signed up for our newsletter as well. Our members get a 1-month advantage signing up for our trail projects. We have finished our trail project season this year, but we will start broadcasting our trail project calendar sometime late winter, early spring next year, maybe the March, April timeframe. And then you can go out and sign up for all sorts of different trail projects we have scattered throughout the state. We have trail projects from North Idaho all the way through Central and Southwest Idaho. We are still working on doing some work in Southeast Idaho. And there's also a number of different types of projects you can sign up for. We have family-friendly projects. These usually happen around National Public Lands Day or National Trails Day. We also do single day or weekend type trips. We do quite a few week-long trips. Some of them are backpacking where you're somewhat self-sufficient, but others we consider kind of like vacations where we use stock to bring in supplies and food, sometimes even have a camp cook who provides and cooks all of your meals for you. So when you get off the trail and you're hot, dirty, tired, and hungry, there's a hot meal sitting there for you. We also have a couple of specific programs, women-only weekends, as it says. This is a program specifically for women to come out and learn about trail maintenance. It's a great place for beginners. We also have a youth program. We have Idaho youth in the high school range coming out and learning how to do trail projects and tap into nature. We also do trail monitoring projects. These are typically week-long backpacking trips in places like the Gospel Hump Wilderness, the Seven Devils Wilderness, where volunteers are backpacking around, monitoring trail conditions and collecting data, collecting information about use sites such as campgrounds, campsites, looking at user trails and social trails, the amount of trash, things of that nature. The other thing is you can always become an advocate for our public lands, stay informed about what is happening, and spread the word. A couple of things I just want to mention. The new this year, the Idaho Trails Association has a trail reporter app. If you go to our website, you'll find that under, I believe, the volunteer tab. And really, this is a great tool to get information back from you. When you're finished with your hike, if you go to the site, you can give us some information about the trail you were hiking on, what the access was like, if you saw any downed trees, overgrown brush, and this gives us and also agencies like the Forest Service information about the trail conditions on the ground. And along with that, there is also a public-facing map that you can go out and explore the the trail conditions that have been submitted through the trail report before you head out. Take a look at the trail reporter map. And a couple of things I just wanted to mention. If you hadn't heard of it already, the Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation Trail Supporter Program started this year. It rolled out on National Trails Day, June 6th. And this is just a voluntary donation-based initiative to help secure much-needed funds for non-motorized trails. And you can probably Google it, but you see here there's a website to buy that ticket sticker. I believe that the asking price is $15, but you could probably donate more if you like. And the idea is that each year you would contribute to the program and get your sticker, and that money will be again doled out to organizations and agencies for the caretaking of our non-motorized trails. And if you happen to miss it, Outdoor Idaho did a series called Trailblazer that really highlighted a lot of the volunteer trail work that is happening across our state. Idaho Trails Association, Selway Bitterroot Foundation, local grassroots running groups, different backcountry horseman groups, lots of different organizations have pitched in and are doing trail work on our public lands. That's still available on the Idaho Public Television website if you want to check it out. And just a couple of things for you to note, it is our 10-year anniversary this year. It has been very challenging with COVID to get people together, so we have decided we are doing a 10-year anniversary party, and that is happening October 21st at 5:30 Mountain Standard Time. I'm sure there will be more information about that, or already is, on our Facebook page. Also, if you sign up for that newsletter, you'll get more information. And then on November 18th, we'll be doing a webinar on the Three Blaze Trail in the Frank Church Wilderness at 7 o'clock. So stay tuned for more information on that. And you can find us on most of the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We have a lot of the webinars that we've been a part of have been recorded and are up on our YouTube channel. So go ahead and check those out. And with that, I'm going to roll over to Phil Huff from the Friends of Scotchman Peak Wilderness. Let me stop sharing here.
Good evening, everybody, and I'm really excited about tonight's show. Before we get to Whitney, though, a few brief suggestions about things coming up for the Friends of Scotchman Peaks Wilderness. We have a fun and fundraiser coming up this Saturday, and despite what you may see outside right now, the weather is looking good. Come join us at Utara Brewing in downtown Sand Point. If you don't know where it is, Google it, but if you're local, you probably do. From 3 to 8 p.m., it's their annual Fall Harvest Festival. They're going to have some really interesting bratwursts, some Indian-themed bratwursts, some fun games and contests, and in part, it will benefit the Friends of Scotchman Peaks. One of the fun prizes you might win is a growler fill a week for a year. So come out this Saturday from 3 to 8 p.m. at Utara. In November, we're also going to co-host with Idaho Trails Association a really exciting program with Derek Lugo, author of The Unlikely Thru-Hiker, about his experience hiking the Appalachian Trail, having come directly from Manhattan with no trail experience. The Unlikely Thru-Hiker, Derek Lugo, will take place on 2 occasions, Monday, November 16th, and Tuesday, November 10th. So check those out. Watch your Insider or social media posts for more details about time and hookup. Then this spring, a companion piece to tonight's program, we're going to interview Laura Moss, who is the co-founder and author of Adventure Cats, all about hiking with cats. That's coming to us in March, the cat month of March. To get ready for next season, you might get your tips on how to train your cat to be an adventure cat. Sometime this winter, we're going to put together a panel on family hikes, not for the faint of heart. These are going to be family hikes, but certain families are really much more adventuresome than others. They're going to show you tips on how to get your kids out and exploring the outdoors to its fullest. For right now, if you want to hear more information about our Mountain Goat Trail Ambassador Program, mountain goats in general, or testimonials on the Scotchman Peaks, you can go to our YouTube channel. If you're not sure how to get there, go to our website, scotchmanpeaks.org, click on the YouTube button. While you're there on scotchmanpeaks.org, sign up for our weekly, now bi-weekly, insider emails, our podcast series, and if you want to get our snail mail newsletter, you can get that too. We're going to turn real quickly here to our main topic tonight. Whitney, Allgood, LaRuffa, longtime friend, acquaintance of mine and my wife Deb. We first met Whitney in 1997 when we were hiking the Appalachian Trail, and Whitney was a ridge runner, and at the time he had with him a dog named Erwin. We just thought this was fabulous, something really new. Not just that he was a ridge runner and got paid to hike the Appalachian Trail that summer, but he got paid to do it with his dog. And so you flash forward about 13 years later, and Whitney and I reconnected at a hiker gathering somewhere in Oregon or Washington and got to talking about those, and have stayed in touch since then, shared a lot of experiences, some time on the trail, a few beers around the campfire, and we invited Whitney to come out in May of 2013 to our annual State of the Scotchman Peaks and do a presentation on how to hike with your dogs. It was so riveting. People still have questions about it today. We're going to hopefully answer some of those tonight. Erwin, the original trail hiking dog, unfortunately went to doggy heaven, but our luck has been with him ever since. They've seen a lot of miles on the trails together. Whitney also wears the brand. He works for Ruffwear, adventure gear for dogs. He was a brand ambassador, is a brand ambassador for Ruffwear. He now works for Six Moon Designs, which makes lightweight hiking gear for those of us who have 2 legs, not 4. And so has a lot of practical knowledge and experience he's going to share with us tonight. Whitney, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Phil. Let me share my screen real quick so I can get this presentation going for you. Okay. Do this right. All right. Hopefully you can all see that correctly. So let's start by talking about hiking with your dog. So here's a picture from the Appalachian Trail when I was in college. And this is my original dog, Erwin, and what looks like my current dog, Carlick, but is actually my friend's dog, I Ching, back then. So as Phil said, my name is Whitney LaRuffa. My trail name is Allgood because it's all good in the hood. And over the years, I've done multiple thru hikes. I've hiked the Appalachian Trail in 1996 when I was 18. Some of my more memorable hikes were I did the Continental Divide Trail in 2016 for my 20th anniversary of hiking the Appalachian Trail. And about a week and a half ago, I just pioneered a new route with 2 friends called the Blue Mountain Trail through northeastern Oregon and the Blue Mountains. And we just completed a 600-mile thru hike of a yet-to-be-done trail. As Phil mentioned, in the 1990s, I was a ridge runner on the Appalachian Trail for 2 years, where I provided a lot of leave no trace education and a lot of just kind of support and help along the trail maintenance, first aid, things like that. I'm the President Emeritus of the American Long Distance Hiking Association West. That's where Phil and I kind of reconnected. That's an organization dedicated to long distance hiking and building community around long distance hiking. I served in that role with that organization for about 7 years. I'm also a Leave No Trace Master. I was a very early Leave No Trace Master. I was certified in 1998, so pretty early on in the program. As Phil mentioned, I'm an ultralight hiker. Over the years, I've worked very hard to go from having a monstrous heavy pack to having a very light pack, which not only helps me do bigger miles, but also keeps a lot of pressure off my knees and allows me to take a dog with me and be able to carry extra gear for them. I am a multiple brand ambassador for multiple brands, including Ruffwear. And as Phil mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Sales for Six Moon Designs, which is an ultralight backpacking gear company based in Beaverton, Oregon. My main responsibility is sales and marketing. I do a lot of in-person events, but I am also now currently also doing all of our new gear design. So I recently designed a backpack that came out this year called the Daybreaker. It's our day pack, and I'm continually working on new designs right now. All right, so over the years, I've had 2 main hiking dogs. My first dog was Erwin. This is him. I had Erwin in 1996. I found him while hiking the Appalachian Trail. I found him in Tennessee. He had been following a lot of my friends around on trail and begging food off them. He had followed some friends into town, the town of Erwin. And basically, when I got to town, they said either that dog leaves or he's going to the pound. And being 18 and maybe being a little impulsive, I decided to take that dog with me. It was probably the best thing I ever did in life because that dog taught me a lot about myself and a lot about growing up. And he's a wonderful companion for 13 years. In 1997 and 1998, we worked as ridge runners for the Appalachian Trail Conference. And I was the first ridge runner that was allowed to work with a dog. And apparently it was a glowing success because over the years, they've had multiple ridge runners now hike with their dogs. That was really kind of a great thing. As Phil said, I got to spend 2 summers with my dog in the woods 24 hours a day. And I think that's a very special bond that a human and a working dog kind of developed together. And he was just such a loyal companion, and also kind of helped keep me company when there was nobody around, and just kind of gave me a sense of security having him with me at night. Like I said, in 1990, or I guess in 97, we took our LNT master course, and I was able to take Erwin with me. And I always say that's kind of the course where I thought I was doing everything right, but they told me everything I was doing wrong, such as dog waste and things like that we'll get into later. But Erwin had a tendency to chase wildlife. I learned that wasn't good and how to rein that in and things like that. So it was a really good educational course for the two of us. All right, my current dog, this is Karluk. In 2008, after many years of hiking, Erwin did pass away. I said I was going to wait a year to get a dog. And like most dog owners, I waited about 3 months, and I wound up adopting this little black lab mix from the Humane Society and immediately started hiking with him. So the first 2 years that I had Karluk, I knew it was going to be very important to make sure he was well trained for the things I want to do with him. So I spent 2 years doing professional dog training here in Portland, working our way up to an AKC Good Citizen certification, which basically means that he's a non-reactive dog, that I had verbal control over him, that he wouldn't, be aggressive towards people, things like that. So if you do have a dog, especially a young dog, I really do recommend professional training. Even having a dog for many years, those first 2 years are very fundamental in having a great dog, and I think having the professional training really helped me there. Over the years, Karluk and I have done section hikes of the PCT. In 2009, 2010, 2012, we did over 150-mile stretches together, and he's really just turned out to be a great hiking dog. 2011, we did a lot of backpacking trips together when he was just a couple years old. That really kind of got him in the mode. We've done the Timberline Trail through hike. He's summited Mount Adams with me. He's done around the Mount Adams with me. And in 2013, we headed to California for an event where we did the Tahoe Rim Trail, which is 175 miles around Lake Tahoe's high country, and he completed that through hike with me. Karluk has been an ambassador for Roughwear and Turbo Pup bars over the years. Roughwear makes really great gear. It's kind of the gear we use exclusively. Before we had a relationship there, we did buy a lot of their gear. It's just very well made, very well engineered gear that's specifically designed by designers who specialize in designing gear for dogs. So it's not kind of like an ad hoc backpacking gear company for humans that decides to make some kind of dog gear. All they do is specialize in making really nice dog gear. All right, so my first hike with my dog was, my AT through hike. I started the Appalachian Trail in March of 1996, and I quickly found this dog about a month in. It was a really kind of a special thing to have this dog and find him, and we really did bond a lot. As talked about going to more ultralight, as you can see in this picture, my pack was quite large and quite heavy back then. Along the way, we got a lot of trail magic. I like to say we got trail magic doggy style. So trail magic generally in a long distance hike could be anything from someone just handing you a soda when you're walking down the road to someone taking you to their house for a shower and laundry and a meal or anything in between. But along the way on our hike, an outfitter in Damascus, Virginia was very kind to me, knew I was kind of a young kid trying to rescue this dog. So he wound up selling me a dog pack and booties and bowls and all the gear I needed for the dog at wholesale, which really helped because I didn't have a ton of extra money. And then 2 different vets along the way gave me a very steep discount to help him get vaccinated and make sure he was healthy to keep going with me. However, along my hike was not all fun and games. When we went to Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, which is the unofficial halfway point of the Appalachian Trail, going into town that day, Erwin came up lame. He was limping on his front paw, which meant that we took a couple extra days off. We went to the vet, and we're told that the best thing to do would be to not have a pack on him, soak his foot in Epsom salts every day for a week, and he should recover. So we took all of his food, put it in my pack, sent his pack forward a week to the next town at the post office there. He kind of was limping around town. We got out to the trail. As soon as we got out to the trail, let him off a leash. He went running up the trail, no problems, like nothing had ever happened. And he kind of gave us a sly look like, haha, got you all. So we did work our way north over a couple months. And when I got to the Maine border, my father drove up from New York to pick him up and take him back to their house because I needed to finish the trail and get to college that fall. and dogs are not allowed in Baxter State Park. So instead of having to deal with the issue of how do I take care of boarding this dog, hiking 120 miles, and then getting this dog back, it just seemed like it was a lot easier to have someone come pick him up and take him home for me. So some issues we did experience along the way. One were extra expenses. I had budgeted pretty well for my own hike, but what I hadn't budgeted for was extra food for the dog, vet bills, medications for HeartGuard, and things like that. Another issue that developed is hitchhiking in the rain. A lot of times on a long distance hike and a thru hike, you do have to go to town once a week to resupply. Generally on the Appalachian Trail or any trail, that can mean hitchhiking anywhere from 1 to 23 miles, depending on where the pass is to the trail. And one thing I learned really quick was when you have a wet, muddy dog, no one wants to pick you up to take you into town, which means that a lot of times when other people get a quick ride, I'd wind up walking in those extra miles to get resupplied. The next issue that kind of arose unexpectedly was lodging. Having a dog really can limit the places you can stay on a thru hike. A lot of hotels don't allow dogs, or hostels in particular don't allow dogs. So it was always a challenge when we got to town, was finding a place where we could stay and have him there with us. And then there's also things like backcountry restrictions. At the time, Smoky Mountain National Park and Baxter State Park, like I said, didn't allow dogs. Luckily for me, Erwin and I met after he had already gone through the Smokies illegally, but I still couldn't take him into Baxter. And then another issue is a 0 day, which is a day off trail where you're just hanging out in town. Instead of getting to hang out with my friends and maybe go inner tubing down a river or going to the movies, a lot of time I was just kind of stuck hanging out with my dog, which I didn't really mind. I'm not complaining. It's just, it does change kind of what your day off is going to look like. So life after the hike. So we do this hike in 96. We're ridge runners for 2 years. And it's time for me to go to college. So in 1996, I attended Virginia Tech my freshman year. One of my hiking partners lived about 45 minutes north of there on a farm. So she was able to have Erwin for me that first year while I was at college. But she did travel for work. So from time to time, I would sneak Erwin into my dorm room and he would stay with me. And for the next 4 years, he basically was at college with me. And he was a pretty amazing dog. At the time, there was a lot of free-range dogs still in Virginia. He was kind of a free-range dog during the day. And I would let him out in the morning, and I would head to class. And generally by the second class I would come out of, he would be sitting outside the building waiting for me. And then he would just kind of follow me around from building to building throughout the day and just kind of lay out in front of the building while I was in class. Talked about being a ridge runner in Pennsylvania. And then in 2000, when I graduated college, I had the opportunity to move to Oregon because I had a degree in wood science to come out here and work in the wood industry. So we moved out here in 2000. And for the first couple years we lived out here, we just spent every weekend we could exploring the Pacific Northwest. So we spent a lot of times in Bull of the Woods Wilderness, Goat Rocks Wilderness. He even went into Mount St. Helens in the blast zone when you could still bring a dog there. He climbed 2 Cascade Peaks multiple times. Erwin went up Mount Hood 3 different times, and he also went up Mount St. Helens a handful of times. What's going on here? Okay, so you're probably sitting here wondering or asking yourself, you know, I really want to get a dog to go hiking. So what should I look for in a dog when I'm going to get a hiking dog? So this is Carlick when he was a sweet little puppy, and we just kind of threw this giant pack on him with nothing in it, just so he'd kind of get used to having something on his back. So attributes I like to look for in a hiking dog when I'm looking for a dog is they need to be agile. A lot of times when you're going to be out in the woods, you need a dog that's not just a big, giant, lumbering animal if you're going to want to do the things I do, like bushwhack or go off trail, go into steep areas, encounter a lot of blowdown. So agility can be a really important thing with a dog. You want to get a breed that's pretty agile. You also want a dog that's loyal. I personally have kind of gotten pretty I forget the word I'm looking for, but I really like a lot of retriever breeds because I think they're very loyal dogs. They're easy to keep around you. They don't tend to run off. They want to please you. So I think that's a very important attribute. And then one with limited health concerns. Why getting a purebred dog can be great. And I know a lot of people prefer that. I personally like mutts because they generally have more limited health concerns. And most importantly, I think you want a dog that's friendly. At the end of the day, nobody wants to encounter a dog that's not friendly when they're out in the woods or in town. and energetic. Like I said, a big lumbering dog. There are some breeds that I know people like a Bernese Mountain Dog is a great family dog, but they're kind of a lazy dog, and you're not going to be able to push big miles if that's what you're into if you get a dog like that. And then trainability is very important. When you start looking at attributes of certain breeds, you'll notice that some breeds are a lot easier to train than others. Erwin in particular was a German Shepherd Chow mix, and he was extremely hard to train. He was very headstrong and stubborn. Whereas Carluck, being a lab mix, is pretty much the easiest dog I could ever imagine to train. As long as I have a treat or just even a pat on the head, he's very happy. And then you want to look for a breed with endurance. A lot of your hunting breeds are very good because they have good long endurance. And then weatherproof. This is pretty important. I like a dog with kind of a shorter coat because that way when they do get wet and muddy, they're a lot easier to clean up. They also don't get as cold as easily because they have oily coats, retrievers, and things like that. So a good weatherproof dog. So some good breeds that I've really worked with over the years with myself or friends are, like I said, mutts. They kind of provide the attributes of multiple breeds, which is really helpful. And then your working dog breeds. Border Collies are great hiking dogs, Australian Shepherds, German Shepherds, Hounds, Malamutes, Huskies. Those are all fantastic and well-known hiking breeds. If you're looking for a smaller dog, I have a lot of friends with Shiba Inus now. Some smaller pit mixes. Those all seem to be great hiking dogs too. Personally, like I said, I really like retrievers, labs and golden retrievers. They tend to be very easy to train. They're very friendly, and they can really hike all day long. And then any of your hunting dogs, pointers, Vizslas, Weinreimers, Ridgebacks, those can also be fantastic hiking dogs too. All right, so I always like to say that obedience is something you should not leave at home. And I know we've all encountered that person who has a dog running up to them, or, oh, he's a great dog, but it's really kind of terrifying to have a dog running at you. So begin obedience training immediately. I think this is very important with any dog. Like I said, use professional training classes. But there's also a lot of basic commands for everyday life that can help you quite a bit. One big one for me is settle, is getting your dog to be able to settle down and calm them down. I think it's a really important thing to train a dog with early in life. Also, a lot of mental training. When Carluck was very young, we played a lot of games of hiding things and making him find them, a lot of nose work, a lot of kind of mental games to make him think. And then, like I talked about, working up to an AKC Good Citizen certificate. That's a really nice thing to have, not only for kind of peace of mind, but I do carry a copy with me when I do hike with Carluck. That way, if we do have to go stay in a hotel when we're on a longer trip, if there's any concerns or something, I can show that to the owner, and generally that'll push them over the edge to let me stay there with them if there's a concern. And then there's also trail training. So there are some things I've taught my dogs to do over the years. One in particular is taking a poo off the trail. I personally don't want to step in dog poo. I know other people don't. Dog poo does carry a lot of pathogens that aren't natural, that can harm wildlife or water sources. So by training my dogs to step off the trail and take a poo, it makes it much easier for me to deal with it by either packing it out or burying it. Another command I like is trail. So instead of the dog wandering off into the woods and running around and doing its own thing, I can easily tell Carluck trail, and he'll walk right back in the middle of the trail. And to train that was very easy. When he was young, I just carried some treats with me. And anytime he would step off the trail, I'd go, no trail, and I'd pull him back to the trail and give him a treat. Eventually, he associated the word trail with, okay, if I'm in this trail, I get a treat or I get rewarded for it. Another one is hike. It drives me crazy, especially when Carluck was young. He would just kind of like stop right in front of me and just kind of like putz around in front of my feet. And by training him to say hike, he knew that he could go forward and move. And that was kind of a command I gave him to start moving along the trail. And then a really important one is wait. This is different than heel, where you'd have your dog heel and come to the back of your leg and be heeling as you walk. Wait is more of just whatever happens, I can say wait, and he can just kind of freeze where he is and stand there until I come up next to him. And that's been really helpful, especially with a lot of wildlife encounters over the years, in particular black bears here in the Cascades. We've run into numerous black bears over the years, and I've always just been able to say wait, and he's kind of stood there and waited for me. I do also believe that every time he sees a black bear, he's pretty much convinced it's the biggest dog he's ever seen, and he's not quite sure what to do about that. All right, so leading up to getting out on the trail does require some physical training, both for yourself and your dog. Now, our hiking style isn't like most people's. I generally wake up before sunrise, and hike until dusk. And it's not uncommon when Carlick was particularly young for us to do anywhere from 20 to 30 miles a day together. So what we did for a lot of training for Carlick while he was younger was twice daily walks and exercise. Generally a pretty healthy, brisk 30-minute walk in the morning and a much longer walk in the afternoon that generally involved either playing ball for about 45 minutes where he would just sprint, or in the summertime when it would get hot, I would take him swimming down at the Columbia River here by our house and just swim him for as long as he could go. Go hiking often. Nothing gets you in better shape for hiking than going hiking. And that's just the reality of it. So if you're going to be doing a big backpacking trip, if you can go backpacking 2 to 3 hours per week year round, 2 to 3 times a week, that's a great way to stay in shape. This time of year, as it gets kind of rainy and wet, and also my dog's a lot, older now, we maybe only hike on an average of 15 to 20 miles a week at the most when he was young. And now we probably only do maybe 6 to 8 miles a week. It's very important for your dog to get used to wearing a pack. The first time Erwin wore a pack, it was a bit of a challenge. Erwin also lost 2 of his packs over the years by running through brush and getting it snagged on something and working out and then coming up to me with no pack on, which is a real problem at times. But when your dog gets used to wearing a pack, they'll start realizing that it's time for them to work. And I can really always tell a personality shift when that pack goes on from this is playtime to this is work time. It'll also help them build up strength and stamina. Now, one thing I do want to caution you is if you do have a young dog, it's very important not to put a pack on them with any kind of weight until they're at least a year old. The reason for that is as they're growing, their growth plates aren't fully fused. And if you put any weight on them too young, it can cause a lot of arthritis later in life. So you want to really make sure if you want to get them used to wearing the pack is to just put the pack on them with nothing on. Or better yet, I use the Rough Wear Palisade pack, which has a built-in harness. So I just use that harness from the pin ears when he was young as a way to walk him, that he would get used to having that on his back when it was time to go hike. And honestly, the best thing you can do for your dog is take them on a lot of hills. Walking uphill will help build up their back leg muscles, which will help their hips stay stronger and help reduce arthritis as they get older, but also make them a lot stronger as you go hiking with them while they're young. And it's really important to make sure you build slowly. You don't want to go out with your dog and try to do a 4 or 5 day backpacking trip if all they've ever done is hang out on the couch. So really what you want to kind of do is start with day hikes, then kind of work your way up to some overnights with them, get them used to being in the tent, getting them used to not tearing up your gear, that kind of stuff, and then kind of work into your longer hikes from there. All right, gear. One of my favorite things in the outdoor world is gear. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the evolution of dog gear then and now. So old school dog gear was very basic. And when I say very basic, I mean very, very basic. It was basic panniers. It was kind of a one-size-fits-all for your dog. Erwin's hung down really low. I wound up having to modify them over the years with kind of like pulling up the back panel and making a fin so it wouldn't drag on them when they were full. And they generally used really, really heavyweight materials. I'm talking like 1000 denier Cadora, number 8 zippers, just kind of really overkill design. And then back then too, we just had like really standard dog food. When I had Erwin, he ate Purina Formula 1. I mean, it's a very fine food, but it's also kind of bulky and heavy to have to carry tons and tons of dog food for a week at a time. So we had really limited options. A lot of times I made my own dog gear. I would repurpose old human gear into dog gear, like a down vest to make a dog jacket, or socks to make liners for the booties, things like that. So kind of the new school world of dog gear is pretty mind-blowing. If you go online and search up dog backpacks, there's probably be 25 options that's going to pop up for you. So there's multiple manufacturers. We use Rough Wear, like we said. Carlick's been an ambassador to them for years because of this educational work we do. They provide us with a lot of his gear. It's just really well-made gear. Other people that are in that sector over the years have been Mountain Smith. I know REI makes some dog gear, Granite Gear, Abo, Karua. I mean, there's a slew of brands. There's a really nice cottage brand out there called Groundbird Dog Gear, and she can actually make you a custom pack fitted exactly for your dog's measurements. And a lot of these people are using new lightweight materials. So that really helps bring down the dog's pack weight. So you don't really want to, pack too much on your dog. So starting with a light pack makes a big difference. And like I said, there's multiple designs and choices, everything from a basic rain jacket for your dog to a puffy jacket for your dog in the winter and everything in between. It really seems like it's just kind of amazing and endless, the options that are out there. So gearing up you and your dog. So here's a picture of us on the Tahoe Rim Trail. You can tell Carlick's not looking super stoked, but that was our 3rd day of snow in a row. And but you can see he's pretty well outfitted. He's wearing a fleece jacket with a Fedora outside that's waterproof. And he's got his pack on. So what goes in your dog's pack? This is pretty important. In '96, there was 2 women hiking with a Rottweiler. And these girls had this poor dog loaded down on the AT with everything. The dog had their tent, their water filter, and a bunch of their other gear on it. And one day I came walking down the trail and I saw the 2 of them and the dog. The dog had no pack and they looked pretty forlorn. And I was like, what's going on? And they said, well, our dog ran off in the woods to chase something and came back without its pack. We can't find the pack. We've been looking for 2 hours. And now we have no tent, no water filter, and none of the dog's gear either. So I think it's really important to keep in mind your dog should carry its own gear and you should carry your own. So in the dog pack, you're going to have some collapsible bowls. Roughwear makes some great ones, but recently I've switched over to the Night Eyes brands. They're really, really light. They're like $15 a piece and they weigh less than an ounce, and they're just a great collapsible dog bowl. A good leash is really important. I use a fixed leash by Roughwear that has a nice clip on the end so I can clip my dog to something when needed. And depending on where I go, sometimes I do bring a length of climbing rope if we're going to be in steep terrain or snowy terrain where I'm concerned about him sliding out. I will actually tie that rope and tie it to myself to make sure that I have a good lead on him when needed. A sham wow is actually a really helpful thing, or some kind of packable water soaking up chamois can make a big difference when you have a wet dog after hiking the rain all day that wants to get in your tent and lay in your sleeping bag. It's nice to have some way to dry the dog off. Good booties are pretty important, especially if your dog is prone to having pad issues when they're out there, of either abrasion or you're going to be going over rocky terrain. One we deal with a lot out here is hot sand in the Cascades on the volcanoes. So a good pair of booties that fit well are very important. Probably want to have a jacket, first aid kit, potentially doggles, which are dog goggles if you're going to be spending a lot of time on snow. It'll help with snow blindness and also just protect them from blowing snow. And whatever your preferred waste management system is. I personally, a lot of times on a weekend trip now or on a shorter trip, will use a dog waste bag like you would in town. And then I carry a double Ziploc bag that I'll carry his dog poo out with me. What does not go in the pack? More weight than what's safe for your dog. A good rule of thumb is 25% of your dog's weight is the maximum amount of weight you should carry on your dog. So, pretty easy. If you had a 100-pound dog, you wouldn't want to exceed 25 pounds. But honestly, I try to keep that somewhere in like the 10% range if you can. Like I said, no tent, no water filter, no stove, and really no unnecessary items that are heavy. That's one thing with gear. Remember, gear companies are trying to sell a product. So while it might look great online to have that gear, you might want to ask yourself, is this gear really necessary for me and my dog to be out there? Now, over the years, I have also worked out some different ways to make my gear multi-use gear for me and the dog. One in particular being my puffy jacket. So a good puffy jacket can keep you warm. And this is the one I used for years. You can see that on the Tahoe Rim Trail, it was quite cold. Carlick was kind of shivering. So I put him in that jacket to keep him warm. And also over the years, as we've backpacked, I've generally cowboy camp with him and sleep in a bivvy. And you can see I have his leash connected to my backpack, which is under my feet. And I took my down jacket and put it over him like a sleeping bag to keep him warm at night. Oh, and also you'll notice he has his own sleeping pad. However, over the years, Carlick figured out once I went to sleep, he could push me off my knee-aware, get on that himself, and I would wind up sleeping on that little foam pad all the time. So here's kind of a quick breakdown of what's in his pack and what everything weighs. So you can see here, this is kind of an older gear list, but this is a pretty good indication of what we would take on a trip. Now, 2 days of dry food at the time we use Natural Balance weighs 40 ounces. There are freeze-dried dog food items out there. One brand in particular, Stella and Chewy's, makes these freeze-dried dried duck pucks that you can rehydrate. Those are really good. I have 2 tennis balls. It is fun to play with your dog while you're out there. I carry 2 in case one gets lost. Freeze-dried treats, poo bags, a soft shell jacket, an overcoat. I do carry these latex booties by a company called Paw Z. These are great booties, especially if you lose a booty, they weigh nothing. Or if your dog was to get an injury or a cut on their pad that you needed to fix and clean up and want to keep clean, that's a really handy thing. You can buy like an 8-pack on Amazon for I think like $12. Some other booties, the Trail Tex booty, which has a Vibram sole. It's more of a heavy-duty booty, really meant for doing stuff off-road. A water bottle, and then his pack. So you got all the gear, you get the dog, you're ready to take a trip. The next question is, where do you want to go? Because not everywhere is suitable to go with your dog. So things I try to consider before going on a hike with my dog is, do we have to ford any kind of streams or rivers? Because there are times where fording a swift stream can be quite difficult for your dog, where I've had to either carry my dog across it or kind of do some ferry runs where I go get my gear and come back and help him across. Is the trail tread suitable for your dog's pads? It's a really important one. You wouldn't necessarily want to take your dog out on volcanic rock for a multi-day trip. That would just tear their poor pads apart. So you really want to ask yourself, like, is what my dog's feet going to be going over suitable for their pads? And then what type of environment are you in, and how is it going to affect the hike for both of you? You know, do you need to carry extra warmth because it's a shoulder season or you're in high alpine? How much is that going to weigh down you by carrying some of that extra weight? How much water is along the way? That's a really important one. As we all know, water weighs 8 pounds per gallon. I know personally I need a liter of water for every 5 miles. Depending on how hot it is, my dog can easily drink a liter of water every 5 miles. So whatever my water carrying is could be doubled depending on how much water is along the way. And then I have to ask myself, what am I going to have to carry for the dog? I know I'm going to have to carry an extra sleeping pad. I know I'm going to have to carry probably some extra food in case, I always carry extra food in my pack along with their pack, just in case his pack ever got lost. Do I need to carry any extra medications, first aid kits, things like that? And then what are the dangers out there? Are there predators I need to worry about? Is there hunters during hunting season that might mistake my dog for some kind of animal? If so, do I need to make sure I have on Blaze Orange? And then am I going on a multi-use trail? Are there going to be snowmobiles around, ATVs, horses, mountain bikes? All those kind of things are dangers to me for a dog that I might need to consider before I go out somewhere. So you can see we're talking about stream crossings in that previous slide, and this is on the Timberline Trail. This is the Zigzag River, and you can see that's a pretty swift, fast river. So I knew it wasn't as deep as it looked, and I knew that he could get across it pretty easily because he wouldn't go over his shoulders. But you can see I took his pack off, carried it on my shoulders, and kind of helped, entice him to keep moving along while we were going through that particular river. I think it's really important when you're out there with your dog, though, no matter what, to keep it fun. I think sometimes myself can be a bit of a masochist in my style of backpacking, so it's very important to make sure I'm keeping it fun for my dog. To do that, I just ask myself, is my dog having a good time when we're out there? I can tell from his body language. Are his ears forward or are they pinned back? Is his tail wagging or is his tail drooping? All those ways that you can tell if your dog's happy or sad are very important to keep an eye on while you're out there. And then I always make sure to take time to rest and play, whether that's tossing the ball or just kind of rolling around on the ground together or playing in the snow. I always make sure we take time for play. And I always make sure we have plenty of time to rest. I mean, when we're not hiking, the dog does sleep on the couch for hours every day. So I know that when we go out there, a nap is probably needed at some point during the day for him. And then on a longer hike, like a thru hike, I have to ask myself, does my dog need a 0 day? I've seen a lot of dogs run pretty ragged because a hiker doesn't want to take a day off. But I think it's really important when you go with your dog on a hike to realize that you're on your dog's hike and you're going to have to kind of let them dictate what you're doing. All right, leave no trace. So leave no trace does go for both people. And you can see here, this sign clearly at a trailhead here in Oregon states that burying human and pet waste at least 200 feet away from water sources and camps. And I think that's really important. One thing that drives me really nuts anymore is going out in the woods. I don't know why people think this is all right, but to see bags of dog poop along the side of the trail while I'm hiking. If you can take the time to bag your dog's poop, you can take the time to dig a hole and bury it. And the reality is I see these bags all over the place because people say, I'll pick it up on the way back, and no one ever seems to pick them up. So dog poo, bury it or pack it out. If I'm on a day hike, honestly, I just pack out the dog poop. If I'm on a quick overnight, same thing. It's not that much. I know it's kind of gross, but by putting it in one of those dog poop bags and double bagging it in Ziplocs, I don't even smell it. Important, dog poo does carry pathogens that cause water contamination, can also harm wildlife, and also it's just not part of the natural environment. There's undigested food that could feed wildlife, and it's just a kind of an unsightly and kind of gross thing that needs to be dealt with. Wildlife's another big area when you're out there. So make sure not to let your dog kill or harass wildlife. It's hard enough to be a wild animal and survive in the harsh environment they're in, let alone without a dog running them ragged, making them, burn up energy reserves or scaring them, things like that. Also, depending on where you are, I know most of you in Idaho have grizzly bears. That's pretty important to watch out for. But also, cougars are a concern with dogs. I was told once the problem with cougars are your dog would go off chasing them, and then when the cougar turns on the dog, it'll come back towards you with an angry cougar in tow. The biggest ones for me over the years have been skunks. Both of my dogs have been skunked over the years. It's not a lot of fun early on in a trip when your dog gets skunked and wants to come in the tent at night. Porcupines in particular can be very dangerous for a dog. And then bees and wasps. More than once, my dogs and I have been stung multiple times and required some Benadryl. And I think it's pretty important to just make sure you're aware that that could be a danger for them. So this is one of my favorite trail signs ever. Attention dog owners, please control, clean up, and bag after your dog. And attention dogs, don't disturb the wildlife, humans, and dogs stay on trail. That's a good dog. I think it's good to have a little bit of humor with all of this. And keep in mind that, we are all out there trying to have fun, and hiking is fun for your dog, but they do need to be a good citizen in the backcountry. All right, it's also important to remember that not everyone loves dogs, especially yours. It's pretty easy, myself included, to think I have the best dog in the world, and then everybody loves them. However, some people just don't like dogs. This is the reality. Some people have fear of them from past experiences, and some people have really bad dog allergies that, they just can't be around a dog because they'll make them sick. So keep that in mind. I think it's very important if you're with a group to make sure your dog's staying off other people's gear. I know in particular, my gear tends to be pretty high end. I mean, my sleeping bag alone is about $550, and I wouldn't want someone else's wet dog getting on my sleeping bag, getting it wet and dirty, or potentially digging at it and ripping it apart. And then mealtime. No one really likes a dog begging at him. So during mealtime, it's really important to kind of make sure your dog is contained if you're in a group setting so that people can enjoy their meal. I will generally feed my dog during mealtime and have him tethered in an area where he's not able to beg and bother people by being in their face. And then liability. The reality is there is a liability issue with your dog in town or on trail. So if your dog is aggressive, please be aware of that and take the proper measures, or consider not taking your dog out in the woods with you. Dog bites are very expensive. They have no place anywhere, but especially in the backcountry. All right, continuing on with our interaction with other users. So do take the time to talk with inquisitive day hikers about what you're doing. I have a lot of people stop and ask me about my dog and his gear. It's great to talk to them about that stuff. Step aside and control your dog around horses. This is pretty important, especially on multi-use trails. I was always told that with horses, they can be pretty skittish. So the best thing to do is to talk with the horseback rider that you're going to encounter in a calm voice and move downhill and control your dog and let the horses get by. Control your dog when approaching others. I really don't like when random dogs come random to me. I know other people don't. So when you are coming up on other people, make sure you have physical or verbal control of your dog where you actually have them controlled. Be wary of other dogs in the backcountry. Ask before they meet. Make sure they're friendly. It's not only the hassle of your dog was to get in a fight and get injured, but also if you're way out in the boonies 3 or 4 days into a multi-day trip, I mean, it could be a real issue trying to deal with a dog wound out there in the field. And then make your dog comfortable with different kind of users, whether it's mountain bikes, horses, and especially people with packs. I know the first time most dogs see someone with a backpack, it's kind of this weird thing, like, what is this person with this big thing on? And they might freak out. So getting them used to seeing that can be really important. All right, continuing on their interaction with others. Do not do the following. Let your dog go running at people coming down the trail barking. That's a really big no-no. Do not let your dog run off leash if the regulations in the area says keep your dog on a leash. Do not let your dog harass wildlife. Another big one is do not let your dog just dig a bunch of holes and then not fill them in. If your dog has a tendency to dig a hole afterwards, please fill it back in. Please do not let your dog contaminate water sources. That's a very important one. And please don't leave unintended or harass wildlife. So, there are times people want to like tie their dog up and go do something. That's not why you're out there with your dog. Your dog should be with you all the time that you're out there to make sure that it's safe and that you two are having a good time together. A big question I get a lot of the time is what kind of dog food to use. So I like a really healthy, balanced diet of dog food that's meat-based with little to no fillers. Dehydrated brands I've used in the past are the Honest Kitchen and Evo. Those are both great, but those do require some time. So it's kind of nice if you have that supplementing your dry food because you do have to rehydrate it, either cold soak it or warm soak it, and then mix in some dry food. For treats, I like dried biscuits. I like dried jerky treats for the dogs because they're light in weight. And then the old peanut butter and Kong that we use at home is the same thing I take out there. Peanut butter is a great supplemental caloric intake for your dog after pushing miles all day. And it's a great way for them to have the comfort of home and also be able to calm down and chill out at night. So doggy first aid, those are the doggos I was talking about for snow blindness. They make a big difference. So first aid kit, a couple items I make sure are in there are septic powder in case we break a nail or cut something to stop the bleeding, clean gauze, vet wrap. I carry a flush syringe to be able to clean out a wound if needed, aspirin and Benadryl. Some great resources for first aid for your dog are the American Red Cross has a course you can take on dog first aid. There's some great books out there on dog first aid. And also talk to your vet. Let them know what you're doing. See what they might recommend you have in your kit, particular to your dog. I would be remiss if I didn't encourage you all to adopt a dog because there's a lot of dogs that get destroyed every year out there. So if you're looking for just a good old general mutt, your local humane society is a great place to look for a dog. Local county shelters and no-kill shelters are another great place. And if you're really looking for a breed-specific dog, there's a lot of breed-specific rescues out there. So you might want to inquire with them about what it would take to rescue a dog through them. Lastly, word of mouth and friends. I know more than one person in life who wound up with a wonderful dog that someone had, they got, something changed in their life, they weren't able to keep the dog, and they were able to adopt a dog from someone that they knew and get a great dog. Big thanks to all my sponsors who help me stay out on trail when I'm not working and help us over the years with our adventures. Astro Footwear, Tokes Outdoors, Montbell, Catabatic Gear, and some others. These are all companies that have really helped me over the years with some great gear. And with that, we are done with the slideshow.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Big round of applause for Whitney.
All right.
A few questions coming in, and I have a few. One of the first ones up is from John Zieski, who's asking a little bit more about booties.
Okay.
I want to hear about your experience in the desert. And he's also asking about an issue with rubbing sores from the pack.
Okay. Well, as far as booties go, I tend to use booties most of the time. Unfortunately, Carla kind of has some delicate pads. So one thing I generally have used in the past is Musher Secret. It's kind of a foot rub you can put on there. So I usually put that on before the booties. It just kind of acts as a little lubricant to keep their pads softer and safe in there. I like the rough wear ones because they do have a good grip and they also are articulated for the dog's feet. And I generally use them in really rocky terrain, hot terrain, or in snow. Snow in particular, I mean, getting snowballs in the dog's pads are always problematic. So it's nice to have a way to keep the snow out of there. I have not personally had issues with my dog's pack rubbing and giving them sores, although I do have a close friend who's had that problem with his dog because it's a very short coat. So one thing we've done to his dog's pad is got some kind of like lammy wool fabric or some fleece and just did some extra padding on the pack. And then also just kind of looked at where it was adjusting and where it was rubbing and then tried to kind of pat it out to that area in particular wouldn't rub anymore on the dog.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you could hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. So what we're seeing in our area, and my colleagues throughout the country say the same thing, a big spike in people getting out this summer, probably, pent up demand from not being able to do their normal vacation. So they're out doing a COVID hike.
Yep.
I'm assuming that also translates to more people with their dogs out on the trail.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I know this year I did a lot of kind of shorter weekend backpacking trips, kind of tried to keep it as local as we could. But I was amazed to see how many people were out in the woods with their dogs. Carluck, unfortunately, is almost 13 years old now. So, besides the occasional day hike with me for 5 or 6 miles, he doesn't really go backpacking anymore. But yeah, I've seen a big increase of people out there with their dogs and just people in general. I mean, you go to any trailhead now and it's pretty packed. It's calming down now. The weather's getting wet. So this would be a great time if you want to get out with your dog right now.
Well, it leads us to think that, we're seeing a lot of new people, first-time hikers out, and the Leave No Trace education is a real need. And the Leave No Trace with the education around dog poop, poop happens. It's appreciated that you address that.
Yes. Poop definitely does happen. And I think it is important to realize, like, I know with even like human waste and Leave No Trace could be a pretty tricky thing. In the last 5 years, I've started packing out all my toilet paper, which is kind of a new thing for me. But it's, I think, kind of the least I can do to keep the environment clean and friendly for other people going forward and safe.
A couple others coming in. What about mosquito bites?
Those can be pretty tough. I've used those citronella bracelets before that you can get for yourself. There's a company I think called Pico, and I've kind of used those and kind of attached them around the pack, and that's helped. If the bites are getting really bad and really itchy, you can give your dog a Benadryl. Just make sure to talk to your vet to make sure you give the proper dosage. But any kind of light antihistamine will help with the itching. There's not a lot you can do. Unfortunately, no one makes a dog bug spray yet, but they should.
Yeah. So there's a longish question coming in from Holly Beach. I don't know if it'll display well, but I'll sum it up like this. A lot of pet owners with their dogs some can tell the dog's stress levels better than others. What do you watch for, especially with an older dog?
Yeah, I mean, with the older dog, it's kind of tough. One thing is you can get what they call broken rudder, which can be pretty hard on a dog. Like their tail will go out and then droop. That just means that they're really strained it too much. I just kind of keep an eye on my dog as far as, when we're out there, they're happy. And it's the same thing. My dog has a big heart. So it's like if I said to my dog, we're going to go hike 20 miles, he would still go, but I could tell he'd be hurting. So I just kind of look to see how his gait's doing. And, is he still wagging his tail, and is his gait okay? Is he still moving okay? Honestly, I mean, a lot of times we use Remedel when we've done our thru hikes, prescribed by our vet, or an aspirin. At the end of the day, a buffered aspirin to help with pain. I also really recommend doing some kind of joint supplement like glucosamine or something like that could help with the pain. And then I think also it's just having realistic goals. I mean, when my dogs were young, they could do a lot of miles, and as they've gotten older, we've backed off what we've done and just kind of reduced our mileage each year until, they just can't do the big miles. And also I think it's important to realize that at a certain point, you just got to take the pack off your dog. And if you want him to still go with you, kind of that 8 to 9-year-old age, 10-year-old age, I mean, that's pretty much when the pack comes off my dogs and they just start carrying all their gear.
We have a question from Nicole coming in about evacuating a dog. And I actually have some experience with this. About 10 years ago, I helped a friend carry out a 60-pound dog 6 miles into the backcountry, and it's not easy. Are there pieces of equipment out there, especially some that you might be able to take with you, that would help?
Yeah, I've seen one online that keeps popping up on my feed when I'm on social media and stuff, and it's actually a dog sling that you sling underneath their stomach and then has attachment points attached to a pack. That would, I think, be a good way to be able to evacuate a dog. Another thing would just to make like a simple Travos or a skid where you could latch together some, poles and maybe use your tarp or a ground sheet and kind of make a litter to drag him out if you had to. And, I've never really looked into it, but I've always wondered if I wind up ever having to use my in-reach device to call for rescue, would they be able to pick up my dog? But you might look online. There are some dog slings that you can pack that are pretty lightweight that they do recommend for being able to evacuate a dog if needed.
Now, I want you to dig into your resources as a tent manufacturer. How do you keep those nails, the dog claws, from ripping out the sill nylon of some of the bottom tents?
That is a very good question. There's a couple different things. One is I think it's pretty important when you're getting your dog into hiking with you to not let them dig and do that whole nesting thing. I think people are always shocked. Carluck sleeps on a Neo Air. Like we each have a Neo Air pad, which are pretty delicate. And people are always like, I can't believe your dog sleeps on a Neo Air. I'm like, well, don't let him dig at it. Like if he starts to dig at it, I make him stop immediately. I just kind of control him. I don't let him in the tent by himself where he can do damage, unless he's just doggone tired. But one thing you could do is consider getting like a piece of Tyvek and putting it on the inside floor of your tent just as an extra barrier to protect the fabric from the dog claws. And then also keeping your dog's nails short and trim before you go out. That's going to help prevent them getting snagged and cracked or having any kind of nail issue, and also prevent them from destroying the floor if they do decide to start digging.
Okay, good. Megan asks also about sleeping at night. Her dog's easily distracted, sights, smells. How do you make sure they get a good night's rest?
You know, for me, I think we're pretty fortunate. We generally do big enough miles where my dog's pretty exhausted. I always find an exhausted dog's going to sleep a little bit better. So playing ball in camp at night, like when we get to camp, after dinner, I'll play ball a little bit. Kind of helps them relax, get used to the area, but it also tires them out. We do cowboy camp a fair amount. Carlick and I have cowboy camp for, a decade together, and he's always been pretty tired and just kind of snuggled up. One thing I do, though, we put our kind of pads together, and I do drape I use a quilt instead of a sleeping bag. I do drape that over my dog, just kind of like at home, and we just kind of spoon at night, which I think helps him stay comfortable and sleep. As far as, sounds and smells, maybe trying to camp by some kind of water source that's making noise for like a white noise effect, that would be helpful, like a creek or like a babbling brook where you get that background noise, or maybe they won't hear all the other sounds. Would probably be helpful.
Okay, we have time for one last question. I'm going to call the audible and ask the question. Any Triple Crown dogs that you know
of? The one Triple Crown dog I'm aware of is my friend Justin Lichter. He had a dog, Yonky, that he did the Triple Crown with over about a 12-month period. And there was one other Triple Crown dog a couple of years ago that a military vet had a service dog that he did the Triple Crown with his service dog. But those are the only two I know of.
That's really phenomenal. Yeah. Once again, on behalf of both the Friends of Scotchman Peaks Wilderness as well as the Idaho Trails Association, we want to thank you for coming on tonight and sharing your experience, your passion, and we really appreciate it, Whitney. Thank you.
Well, it was my pleasure, and really excited to see everything you guys have been doing. These webinars have been great, so best of luck the rest of this year.
And we thank all of the folks who joined us this evening. We hope you found it fun, informative. Again, we plan on bringing some more content like this to you. Next up will be in November, the unlikely thru-hiker, Derek Lugo. He wrote the book, The Unlikely Thru-hiker, and I think you'll find his story really fascinating, compelling, and a fun thing to watch. So keep in touch with all of our social media and listservs and emails, and you'll hear more about that from both ITA and the Friends in the coming month.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night.